Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video we're going to do some more writing feedback. Again, we have an IELTS writing task 2, academic essay. Let's check it out. So, we start as always by analysing the hell out of the question. We really want to analyse every bit, make sure that we fully understand it, make sure that we're not missing anything important. So, first of all, in the future. So we're not talking about now, we're not talking about the past. We're talking about in the future. Nobody, maximalist language, but nobody will buy printed books or newspapers. So nowadays people buy printed books, right? They buy textbooks for university. They buy novels that they read. They might buy history books that they read in their free time or something like this. So printed books. Those are printed books. And people also buy newspapers. Well, why do they buy newspapers? To check the news. So there are all sorts of famous newspapers all over the world. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the Daily Express, the Guardian, and so on. People buy these newspapers because they want to check the news. But this question predicts that nobody in the future will buy these printed books or newspapers. Why? Because in the future they will be able to read everything they want online without paying. So not just online, but also, maybe importantly, without paying. Okay. So the situation now is that people buy printed books and newspapers, but the situation in the future will be different. People will not buy printed books or newspapers because everything will be available online. And this isn't talking about now, even though it is, seems to be moving that way. We're talking about the future. So will these printed books and newspapers disappear? Just like things like cassettes. We don't mean like totally 100% disappear. Although it does say nobody will buy printed books. But, I think of it like cassettes. I think nowadays we can say nobody buys cassettes anymore. Even though, some collectors and things like this, those little music cassettes, we have MP3s, before that we had like CDs, and before that we had cassettes, and before that we had like vinyl records and things like this. But nobody really buys cassettes anymore, right? They've disappeared because now people can get the music that they want online. Okay. I think we get the idea now. To what extent do you agree or disagree? So these questions, to what extent do you agree or disagree? I really just want the candidate to choose one. Either they agree that printed books and newspapers will disappear, or they disagree and they think that printed books will stay around. So of course, there is a possible middle position where, you feel like they will mostly disappear, but not completely disappear. There is that scope for that nuanced view. But to make your life easier, I just think it's easier just to pick a position. Do you agree or disagree? Now, in terms of the structure, in the introduction, I always like a little bit of background information about the subject. The subject is, the digitalization of printed books and newspapers, or even book reading. That could be broadly the theme. Bit of background information. I don't know. For centuries, humans have read physical books and got their news from newspapers, or maybe since the invention of the printing press. I guess not for centuries. For many years, humans have turned to printed books and newspapers to get the information that they want. However, reference to the question, however, there is the belief that this format will disappear and be replaced by digitalized books, something like this. Some background information, a reference to the subject, and also I want to see the candidate's position. I want to see in the introduction if the candidate agrees with this prediction or disagrees with this prediction. If they agree, body paragraph 1 will be reason 1 why they agree and a development. Body paragraph 2 will be reason 2 why they agree and a development, and the conclusion will be a quick summary of the points that the candidate made, plus perhaps some type of reflective comment. Maybe the easiest reflective comment here is maybe to say, to think a little bit about whether this is a positive development or not. That would be, I think, an appropriate reflective comment. But okay, let's see what we get from the candidate. There it is. There it is. Okay, let's see. So, firstly, we do get 4 paragraphs, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. But look how long this looks. Wow. This looks to me like it's like 400 and more than 450 words. Maybe even 500. Let's take a look. Word count. Oh, 504 words. Okay, piece of advice number 1. I can't believe I've given this piece of advice so many times. I guess it means that people don't really watch my videos. They just want to have their writing checked. Okay, fine. But I will just keep repeating the same piece of advice over and over and over and over again. If the word limit, if they say you should write at least 250 words, surely some part of your brain must tell you 500 words is too many, right? Should I write twice as many words as they ask me to write? The answer to that question is no. Now, will you be heavily penalized for this? Not directly. Indirectly, you can be penalized for it. The biggest problem, of course, is time, that it takes twice the amount of time, or well, maybe not. It takes a bit more time to write 500 words than it does to write 250 words. And time is an important resource in the test. You have 40 minutes to do this task, which is a lot of time, but just don't write 500 words. If they say you should write at least 250 words, really you should be aiming for 280 to 300 words. If you're a little bit more than 300, fine. If you're up to 350, that's the point where I tell students and candidates, you have to edit your work. You have to find a way to get that word count down. So anything over 350 for me is a red flag, and I say change it. If a student gave me a piece of work with 500 words, I wouldn't check it. I would simply say to them, nope, not checking it. Edit it, get it down to under 350, and then I will check it. Yeah. But okay. Let's get into let's see what we get from the candidate then. It is argued that in the future, cool, I like this, it is argued. Already we're showing some nice grammar with present simple passive, talk about in general. It is argued, it's impersonal language, good. It is argued that in the future, no one will buy newspapers or books. Okay, just changed from nobody to no one. Okay. No one will buy newspapers or books, since all people will be able to read anything from devices such as phones and tablets for free. Cool, that's a good paraphrase. Don't think we haven't really got background information about the subject. Candidate has gone straight into the paraphrase, but that's okay. You won't be punished for that. I like background information, but that's me as a human, not necessarily me as an examiner. Just to directly paraphrase, okay, I don't mind. From my perspective, okay, we get from my perspective, which is good, which is, a nice bit of functional language to show this is my opinion. But then we get I believe, which also shows that it's my opinion. So why do we have these two bits? You could just say, from my perspective, despite widespread digitalization, or I believe that despite widespread digitalization. So we don't need both from my perspective and I believe. Just one of them does the job. Despite the widespread. So despite the widespread, but I like this despite the widespread digitalization of books and newspapers in the future, reading some of them for free is not going to be possible due to copyright laws. This is okay. First point to make is in the introduction, I need to see your position. I want to know if you agree or disagree, and you've done a good job of that. But I don't need to know why you agree or disagree. I just need to know your position here. You don't need to go into so many details. So copyright laws won't necessarily be a restriction. There are certainly publishers who make their content available for free online now, and that is not against any copyright laws. They just generate their money from advertising. So I think this is going to be a very difficult thing to argue, but we'll see how you do. However, good signposting language. However, I fully agree that the majority of people will select reading on gadgets. Maybe we'll choose to read. I don't like this. We'll select reading on gadgets. It's just a little bit awkward. It's okay. It's just a little bit awkward. We'll choose to read. Maybe is better. We'll select reading on gadgets, comma, since it is more convenient and easier to read compared to paper books. Okay, I think this is a simple argument, but we seem to have taken the middle position. We don't seem to show if we agree or disagree with this. You're kind of in the middle, saying, well, not all, but most. And that's, there's nothing wrong with that. You can say that you agree to some extent, but not fully. I just think it makes your life more difficult to maintain a clear position throughout. But okay, so now we should get body paragraph 1 should be something about copyright laws, why the existence of copyright laws will stop this prediction from coming true. Let's see. On the one hand, so we should have on the one hand, and also this is a to what extent do you agree? And I don't know if on the one hand, on the other hand, let's see, yeah, on the other hand. I don't know if on the one hand, on the other hand is the best approach to take with to what extent do you agree? Although you have moved, you do change position, so maybe it's okay. Okay, on the one hand, some might assume, okay, we don't need to really we don't need to repeat the point here. The point is in the question, and you've also paraphrase the question here. So you don't really need to paraphrase it again. We know, right? So the topic sentence again is you're just saying that some people in the future think that everything will be available for free. This isn't the topic sentence. We want to get into it more quickly. So you could start it with one reason why this prediction may not come true in the future is due to copyright laws. That's a great topic sentence for the paragraph, and then you can build from there. So this whole topic sentence is just a little bit unnecessary. But let's read it. Might assume that in the future every book, article or newspaper is going to be free, and that would be the reason. I don't know why would. Will be the reason for reading on devices. Okay, but all unnecessary. First and foremost, in today's society, okay, but we want to... So in order to have a logical flow here, you've mentioned this won't come true because of copyright laws first. Now, wouldn't it make sense to talk about copyright laws first? So I don't... The flow of the text is just a little strange. First and foremost, good signposting language. In today's society, it is evident, nice, I like this, it is evident that, very good academic style, it is evident that almost all modern books have been digitalized and have PDF versions. I think that's probably true. However, assuming the widespread digitalization, just a spelling mistake with digitalization, but I have no problem with this spelling mistake, it should be digitalization. I have no problem with that. You won't lose any points at all for misspelling digitalization this way. It's fine. Digital. Digital is with an A, but digitalization with an I. But okay, doesn't matter. Assuming the widespread digitalization of books will result in them being free. I really like this gerund clause. Result in something doing something. Very nice, very nice, very nice. Assuming the widespread digitalization of books will result in them being free is absurd. It isn't absurd. That's too much to say it's absurd. It isn't absurd. You could say it's, rather unrealistic. That's more academic. It's rather unrealistic. Absurd is just too strong. It's too maximalist. Since books and other writings are mostly made for financial purposes alongside authors or with authors, but not alongside with authors. Making an impact on society. Okay. Language seems good, but not quite sure of the point. Okay, so the belief that digitalization of books will make them free is absurd. Why? Because books and other writings are mostly made for financial purposes. Okay, that's fair. and authors making an impact on society. Well, authors can still make an impact on society even if it's free. So I'm not sure about this idea. The first idea, absolutely agree. However, there is an easy comeback, which is, well, you just put ads on that free material. But okay. It would not be fair. So we're not talking about the fairness of doing this. We're talking about whether this prediction is accurate or not. Do you agree with this prediction? Not do you agree that we should do it, but do you agree that it will happen? So it would not be fair if all books were free. I like this conditional, hypothetical stuff. This is good, even in the futuristic world. Okay, but fairness really isn't important. For newspapers, however, annual or monthly subscriptions are practiced. What does it mean to practice a subscription? So that's a strange collocation. To practice a subscription. Really? Annual or monthly subscriptions are practiced, even today. So is a little bit informal, isn't it? As a result or as a consequence or consequently. With a small payment, newspapers are and will be able to be read on devices. Okay, kind of get it. In addition, so the paragraph is just too long. We are trying to do too much in this paragraph. We have, first of all, the point that people need profit, so they won't become free. Authors need to make an impact on society. Not quite sure where that's going. It won't be fair if they're for free. Newspapers have subscriptions, and then in addition, some older people might want to read books. You're doing too much. You have 4 points here. Really, a paragraph really only needs 1, maybe 2 points. In addition, some older people might want to read. I like this might want to. This is good hedging language. Might want to read books as they used to in the past rather than they are past. Oh, but they are past is okay. Since they are extremely devoted. You don't need the comma here, but it's okay. You can use it. Since they are extremely devoted. Extremely devoted feels a little bit emotional or emotive to that. I wouldn't put it red. Maybe I'll just put it as orange. To that type of reading, so they would probably continue reading them even in the digitalized reading world. Okay, but there is a problem with that argument here, is that old people will die, right? Sorry to break the news, old people will die, and that's kind of the argument, that once that generation that is used to reading books, once they die out, then digitalized books will replace them. So that last argument is a little bit weak for me, but okay, you're not really judged so strongly on the strength of your arguments, but still. Okay, but okay, comments on this paragraph. It's just too blooming long. Let's see how long this paragraph is. I bet this paragraph is about 150 words. 167 words for one paragraph. It's too much. It's too much. You have to brainstorm your different ideas. You have to select your ideas carefully. You do not have space to talk about every single idea you have. We still haven't mentioned copyright law, which is concerning me because you mentioned it as such an important thing it was important enough to be in the introduction. Will it make it into the body? Let's see. On the other hand, I believe that the reason for future reading so this is just strange. The reason for future reading digitalization. I don't like that as a noun. Future reading digitalization. I don't like it. Is going to happen. I believe. Okay. On the other hand, I believe that it's a bit personal. I believe. Save that for the conclusion, perhaps. I believe that the reason for future reading digitalization is going to happen. So it's strange to use a noun for plus noun plus is going to happen. So we need a gerund clause there, not an indicative clause. But I don't want to talk too much about linguistics. Is going to happen due to the fact, it's grammatically very, very strange here. I believe that the reason why maybe works, that could make it easier. The reason why future reading digitalization is going to happen is because of the fact that, or is due to the fact that. So, a lot of strange grammar here. It's just not connected properly due to the fact that this type of reading is more convenient. Okay, are we not going to get anything about copyright laws then? So why did you mention these copyright laws if in the introduction, if you're not going to talk about it and explain what you mean in the body? Firstly, in order to read books or newspapers, I like this starting with a purpose. Introducing a purpose with in order to read books or news. Oh, sorry, that should be green. In order to read books or newspapers, purchasing is required. Printed books or newspapers. Printed books or newspapers. Purchasing is required. It sounds just a bit strange. Purchasing is required, but okay. Most people need to go to bookshops to buy the needed. Again, what we're not. I want to see an argument here. I don't. I'm still reading this and I'm seeing a lot of background information, but I'm not seeing an argument. Most people need to go to bookshops to buy the needed book, and as a result, spend a lot of energy and time only getting them. I see what they mean. They're talking about that it's inconvenient, but maybe mention that. Digital books at the same time can be bought with only one click. Okay, maybe it makes sense, right? They say it's more convenient. They take a long time to kind of explain why it's inconvenient, but maybe use just a bit of language. Firstly, the current way of buying books is too inconvenient since people have to go out, they have to spend time leaving home and going to a bookshop to buy them. Mention that that's inconvenient, maybe. Digital books at the same time, like this signposting language, good stuff. At the same time can be bought with only one click on different book sites and at the same cost. They eliminate the unnecessary time and energy spending. Energy spending is a bit of a strange lexical item. Energy spending just sounds a bit strange. Which is crucial for learn. So what would I put instead of energy spending? Maybe I can offer an alternative. They eliminate the unnecessary time and energy it takes. Maybe something like that. Which is crucial for learners. Why are we focusing on learners? The question doesn't ask you to talk about learners specifically. So why are we talking about learners? It seems strange to just focus in on learners randomly, for instance. Okay, for instance shows that it's an example, but maybe give a few different examples. Furthermore, good signposting language. Reading handbooks and newspapers can be very difficult for some people. It is clear that some dense books and newspapers are written with a very small font, so reading can be problematic for some people, especially for those who already have loss of eyesight. A loss of eyesight or problems with their eyesight is probably better, as it can even worsen their current state. I don't know if that's true. And it here isn't immediately clear. I know you mean reading this small font. Yeah, maybe it refers to reading. Reading can be problematic and it reading. Okay, fair enough, that works. It can even worsen their current state. So I like this verb worsen. Good stuff. I don't know if that's true though. Reading small font, I don't know if it worsens a person's eyesight. Digital books at the same time. Not at the same time, on the other hand here. Meanwhile, maybe. Maybe at the same time. But we've already used at the same time just there, haven't we? And so just be careful with repeating some of these things. If you can find an alternative, it shows better flexibility. Meanwhile is good here. Digital books, meanwhile, can be read with zooming, by zooming. I think by is better. By zooming the text, which reduces the difficulty for the eyes or one's eyes. All of these advantages suggest that in the future reading will mostly be digitalized. Okay, but you haven't, and this is a problem now, you haven't maintained a clear point. You haven't maintained a clear focus. To what extent do you agree or disagree? I still don't really know. You're saying it won't disappear because of copyright laws, but then you're saying most people will read digitalized stuff because it's convenient. And then you're saying digitalization won't happen it's absurd that digitalization will happen because people need to make money, and also old people like reading physical books. And then you say that you believe that future digitalization will happen. So there isn't a consistent focus here that I can see. But anyway, in conclusion, good signposting language. Nice and simple, but it does the job. In conclusion, despite some readers possibly continuing with printed books in the future, as they are devoted to that way of reading, I fully believe that the majority of the population will read anything, will read maybe everything is better than anything, will read everything on futuristic devices. Well, the devices aren't really futuristic, right? You mentioned the devices, gadgets, smartphones, those things aren't really futuristic anymore. Technological devices, maybe, as it is more convenient. Devices. Reading it is more convenient. Cool. Okay, so that kind of helps you to focus back in, or it helps the reader to understand your position. It is more convenient, reduces unnecessary time and energy spending. Again, I'm not a fan of this energy spending. How much energy we spend, and how much energy we spend or have to spend. And at the same time makes reading much easier. This is one sentence. A paragraph should be more than one sentence. I know that it's a very complex sentence with multiple clauses, but you have to find a way. A paragraph should not be one sentence. That's all I'll say. Cool. Maybe you could. So not a bad recap, not a bad summary of your main ideas. And it really helps to see exactly what your position is. So while I was a little bit unsure in the body paragraphs where exactly you were, the conclusion kind of tied it up nicely. It's just I don't like that the conclusion is just one sentence. So try to break it up into 2 or maybe 3, and maybe you could have added a reflective comment, but that doesn't matter. Let's get to some scores here. So, task response. I'm going to give this a 6. Now, the reason I'm going to give this a 6 is, one, because there are too many bits of information, too many arguments here. And it becomes confusing to keep up with all of the arguments. Some of them are not really well explained and not really on point. Like, it wouldn't be fair if all books were free. That's not what the question asks you to do. Also, I feel like this point is just a little bit weak, Oh, older people like reading. Yeah, but older people die out, and it's, it seems quite easy to counter that argument. But okay, doesn't matter about that. The conclusion is one... it's okay, the conclusion really helps, but for those reasons, just because you have too many arguments and some of them are a little bit irrelevant, for that I'm limiting your task response to a 6. Coherence and cohesion. So I think there is enough for a 7, although there is a very strange... Although this paragraph is only one sentence, which I really don't like, and there is a bit of strange cohesion here. I think in general, candidate really does demonstrate a lot of good stuff. And of course, when I mark it positively, I'm focusing on what the candidate can do, not on what the candidate can't do. So in terms of what they can do, they can start sentences by introducing a purpose with in order to. They can use things like at the same time. They use the normal things like in conclusion, furthermore, on the one hand, on the other hand, it is argued. From my perspective. So looking at that, I think there is enough, and there is also a clear 4-paragraph structure. Great. So coherence and cohesion, I think I can award the 7. Lexical resource, I think I can award 7 for this too. Lots of topic-specific language, some kind of strange things like anything instead of everything. I'm not quite sure that futuristic works here. Energy spending isn't as good as how much energy we spend. So I can look at just some of the shortcomings. Okay, it's a misspelling of digitalization, but I don't care about that. Absurd is too maximalist. It's not very academic. We have a strange collocation with practice subscriptions. But overall, I think the candidate does demonstrate enough C1 language. Lots of language related to the topic, so I don't need to worry about that. Cool. Lexical resource 7. Grammatical range and accuracy. I think we can award the 7 for this too. Candidate makes really good use of distancing language. It is argued. This hedging language with might. It's down there with old people somewhere. Some older people might want to read. I really like this might want to read it. It shows good skill with this distancing language. It would not be fair if all books were. We get a second conditional in there. Candidate knows how to use however in the middle position. And I believe they used however in... Yeah, for newspapers, however. So candidate shows good flexibility with the use of however. The candidate knows that you can put however in the middle position, you know, clause, full stop, however, comma, clause, or clause, full stop, subject, comma, however, comma, rest of the clause, or the predicate. Anyway, don't worry about that. You might not have understood what I mean about however, but trust me when I say the candidate shows good flexibility with the use of however. Cool. Yeah, not too many mistakes. A couple of mistakes with articles, like the loss of eyesight or something like that, or the digitalization of something. A couple of minor mistakes with articles. There might even be a case to say that the candidate deserves an 8, possibly, for grammar. But for me, I think, you know, my impression is C1 grammar, 7 probably is fair. Could it be 8? Maybe. I'm going to stick with a 7. I'm just going to go with my impression. I'm not going to look back through all of the text because it's just too long to look back through it. But I could imagine, you know, maybe an 8 for lexical resource. I feel like lexical resource or GRA, maybe one of them could get an 8. But for me, I'm going to stick with a... No, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to give 8 for grammatical range and accuracy. Yeah, because... instinctively I feel like the work is... No, I'm not. I'm gonna the reason I'm gonna do it is for strategic reasons, and I'll explain that in a moment. So I'm gonna stick with my initial impression of 7 for GRA. So overall, this gives the candidate 6.5, and I don't want the candidate to get band 7. I don't want them to get C1 because this might encourage them to continue to write 500 words. You're falling down on task response because you have too many ideas in one paragraph. It's too many words. It's difficult to get through. It makes it confusing. Fix your task response. Get it down to about 300 words, and I promise your essay will read better. The focus will be clearer, and you will get a higher mark if you write fewer words. So my prediction is that if this candidate writes fewer words, if they get it to 300 and they can maintain this level of, you know, coherence, cohesion, grammatical range and accuracy, and lexical resource, my prediction is that the candidate will get 7.5 in their writing. But I'm giving this candidate 6.5 because they've written 500 words, and we're just a YouTube channel. That's it. Yeah. So I hope you found that writing feedback useful. If you have any comments, of course, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. If you would like me to check your IELTS writing tasks, then you can request this on my Telegram channel. There is a link to this Telegram channel in the description. And also, if you would like a free IELTS practice speaking test with feedback, you can also request this in the Telegram channel. Again, a link to the Telegram channel is given below. The most common comment I get on this channel is, how can I request a speaking test? How can I request a writing check? I want you to check my writing. How can I do this? Every video, the description is the same. You can request it by joining this Telegram channel. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Have a wonderful day and see you all very, very soon. Bye-bye.